I met Ralph, my husband, through his two sisters, Nancy and Teresa. We were more or less the same age, and we went to high school together.
At that time, I was driving a limousine, and I'd go out on a funeral, and she'd meet my sister. We'd give her a lift. I'd bring them to drop them off at school, and then I'd go to the funeral that I had to go to.
And of course, I was delighted because I could save myself the dime for the bus, use it for something else, because a dime then was a lot of money.
Honestly, I thought she was a skinny little runt. She only weighed about 95 pounds. She was very small, and but she was cute.
I really didn't like him very much. I thought he was a pest to begin with, and he was always annoying me.
Well, I was a homebreaker. I kept bothering her, teasing. When you're young, you do crazy things.
He always had something to say that was not very nice, but not very bad, but always kind of just that annoying way of saying things like if I was humming or I was in the car on the way to school, I'd be maybe singing something.
She had a very bad habit, and she still does. She whistles.
He'd pull over to the side of the curb, and he would say, "Listen, if you're going to sing, please, I'll let you out here, I'll give you back your dime, and take the bus."
Her bad habit was that whistling, and I couldn't stand it at the beginning.
And I said to myself, uh-oh, I said, I'm not going to like this fella too much.
I didn't feel strong that she didn't like me. I just felt that she thought I was, well, how would you call it, stuck up, that's the use. And I really wasn't.
I tolerated him for a while, and then I stopped getting lifts because and the girls used to say to me, "How come you don't come meet us in front of the funeral home? You don't come to school with us anymore, you don't get the lift." I says, truthfully, I don't like your brother. So can you imagine me saying that? I didn't like their brother. And that was the end of going to school with them in the limousine.
I liked her from the beginning, but I never told her that until later on, really.
I took ill.
She ended up with appendicitis, I believe it was. And yes, it was and she was operated on Parkway Hospital.
Oh, he said, if I knew, I would have come to visit you. I says, well, thank you very much. He says, can I come up and see you? So I don't want to be impolite. So I says, all right, if you want, but I'm in bed.
When she come home, she felt isolated because she hadn't been out in a long time. And I think that's when I made my first move.
And sure enough, he showed up. And he showed up with a bouquet of flowers and a box of candy. And there I am in bed, in flannel pajamas, my greasy, oily hair in pigtails, and sweaty. I don't think I had a bath or a shower in 3 weeks.
She says, oh, she says, you brought me candy too. I says, no. I says, that's for your mother, and the other one was for you.
And we sat, we talked. He was very nice, pressed my mother tremendously. He made a bigger hit on her than on me. And then he left.
So I made good points with the old lady,
And then after that, I hadn't heard from 2 or 3 days. And then came another phone call, and I was starting to get better. And he said, can I take you out when you're well? And I said yes. And I tell you the truth, I don't know why I said yes. I think it was because I was so tired of being at home, in bed, and sick. I says, I think anybody would have asked me, I would have gone.
I think that was the only reason she went out with me, because she was never friendly, really, with me.
He took me to Tung Hoi. It was quite a popular Chinese restaurant in Manhattan.
When we went, we sat down. The waiter comes over, and he's ready to take the order. I says, well, what would you like? You read the menu.
And I said, oh, I think I would like a meatball sandwich.
I says, Peggy, you're in a Chinese restaurant. What do you want for meatballs?
And he started to laugh, and the waiter looked at me. He says, Ah, he says, this is not Italian restaurant. He says, this Chinese restaurant. He never let me forget it.
I says, no, no, no. I says, just bring us a drink. We had a drink. I paid the bill, and we went across the street to an Italian restaurant. It wasn't. It was like a sandwich place, a quick house, one of those quick places. And she had her meatball sandwich.
And then I came home, and all my girlfriends wanted to know what happened, you know. And I said, yeah, I said, is he a stinker? Is he a stinker? I said, you know, really, I says, I'm kind of sorry I ever thought that about him because he happened to be a very nice fella and a gentleman. So I said, I had a really nice time.
So that was our first date.
And after that, we got to be sort of an item, sort of an item. I kind of got cold feet, and one night we went to the movies, and I said to him, I think we should not see each other anymore. And he said, why? I says, I just feel I don't fit in to the environment with your family and everything that goes on, and you being in business, everything. I just felt that that wasn't going to work out for us or for me.
Certain things you can put up with, other things you can't. And I think she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to put up with my family.
They were a business family, you know, and a large family, very large, 10 children. Some of them married, some of them still home. And I saw a completely different family than I grew up in.
She probably was right. Neither I or fit.
I'll never forget that day we gone to the movies up the corner, and it started to rain. And we were standing outside under a big umbrella. He had a big golf umbrella. And those are the things you remember, little things like that. And he looked so sad when I said that. And I almost wanted to bite my tongue because I saw such an expression on his face. He was very, very hurt.
My brother Joe married a girl from Texas, and he was going down to Texas. I got up one morning. He says, Ralph, what are you doing? Do you want to come? Come on. Without even saying anything or talking to her, I threw some clothes in the bag there, whatever, and I went down to Texas.
And I hadn't seen him for a whole year. I hadn't seen him for a whole year.
But when I come back from Texas, I felt that possibly I made a mistake.
Every place I went with my friends or my girlfriend, he'd pop up with John Perna, Johnny, his best friend.
There was one particular time there was a bazaar down on Westchester Avenue. And she come walking out, and John and I, Kumpy, we used to call him, was standing there.
And we'd get off the Ferris wheel, and there we'd be coming down there with the two of them sitting there, waiting for us to get off the Ferris wheel. And
she says, fancy you meeting here. I says, oh, yeah. But she turned around and says, well, what are you doing? I said, oh, nothing. And before you know it, we started the conversations over again, and I tried being as polite as I could.
Whatever it was, wherever we went, they would show up.
I kept pulling little things like that, little surprises. Or she'd go to a movie. Before you know it, she'd turn around, I'm sitting in the row behind her. And she'd wonder, how the heck did I find out?
And I didn't realize it, but he was in cahoots with my girlfriend. And she would tell him every time we were going to go somewhere, where we were going to be, at what time, where. And they'd always make it their business to be there because he was hell-bent on getting me back. And that was how I started to realize that he really meant it. So, so that was it. But unfortunately, I was dating someone else. We went to a place called the Pelham Heath Inn. It was on Eastchester Road in the Bronx.
She was going out with another fellow. And it was his something with the family that I don't recall. It was somebody's birthday. Joey,
the young man that I was going out with at the time, he was a musician. He played with a band, and he couldn't make it that night. They had an engagement.
And Peggy was invited with her two sisters and her two brother-in-laws.
And we must have been about 15 people.
what I did, I says, that's the heck with them. I'm going to show up.
And we were all sitting down there, you know, enjoying the night, enjoying the occasion, this and the other thing. And there's Joey's family, too, there. Everybody, his brother, his sister-in-law, his sister, and his best friend, and several other people that were there in the family, his cousins. And we're all sitting there, and who comes walking in? Ralph.
Hey, I says, hey, well, nice meeting you here.
He had a beautiful sport jacket, black and white check, and black pants, and a shirt and a tie. He was really all decked out.
So I think my brother-in-law started giggling. They were laughing, you know, and my sister-in-laws were surprised.
My sisters are kicking each other under the table, kicking each other. And my other sister, my sister T, she was a vamp. She's punching me like this at the side of the table, you know. Ask him to stay. Ask him to stay.
So they sit down, have a drink. I sat down. I didn't care.
And he got right into the conversation. And so Ralph's got just fit right in. And he won everybody over, you know, telling him this and that and everything. Because he always had a great personality. And then I said, oh, by the way, I says, I promised to call Joe at a certain time.
So I says, come on, I'll walk you. The phone booths are over here in the lobby. So we went there. I even gave her the money to call him. And she must have thought I was nuts. I don't know.
Oh, he was being real sarcastic, really. And so I called, and would you believe it? That Joe knew that Ralph was there because his brother had gone first to call him and say that her ex-boyfriend showed up.
After that, I says, hey, the gloves come off. That's it. I don't care. I'm going to go for her. I'm going to take her, and that's it.
But then again, I had so much respect for him. At that point, I says, they were right when they say he's never going to give up. I realized it then. And then I really felt that I really had fallen for him.
I was able to convince her.
So with that, I had to break up with the other one. That was hard because he already had an engagement ring.
Up where above the florist, there was a two-bedroom apartment. And some very good friends of my father had rented that. And she used to play the piano. She's a very one, Mrs. D'Angelo.
She invited us three, his two sisters and me, upstairs for coffee. And then she says, you got to play for us, you know? So me, it was a treat to sit down and play a baby grand, so I did. And I stopped playing a little bit. And who comes upstairs? His Majesty, Ralph.
And I sat on the piano bench with Peggy, and she kept playing.
And all of a sudden, his sisters disappeared. They just disappeared out of the room.
So I says, you got to play Peg of My Heart for me.
See how charming he was? And I did know the song. It was popular at the time. So I played that song for him. He says, oh, teach me the notes.
And she says, well, what do you want that for? I says, because I love the song. And I says, and I love you. And it started all over again. John was a wonderful guy.
John was like his brother, and like a biological brother, because he was always with them. They were always together since they were children.
To say that he loved me would be not the right word, because the attraction between the two of us was so strong. We became instant friends, close friends, confidants to one another, and it remained all through our life.
They knew each other from when they were 8 years old. They were friends. They were inseparable.
He was my better half as far as men go.
In fact, people thought that John was one of the brothers. And they were like two brothers, the two of them. They were so close, very, very close.
We were closer than brothers. It wasn't it was a situation that just lasted for a lifetime.
Nancy was Ralph's sister. And we had gotten to be very close friends.
Nancy was a pretty little kid, and she knew it.
John had always been in love with Nancy.
I was one of the so-called rich kids. I had a bicycle. Nobody in those days had a bike. And I used to lend it to him, and he'd come back and forth. And he got to see her so often that she felt that he was like a brother.
But from when they were children, he adored Nancy. And that's why he always was there, always there.
She says, it's like me going out with my own brother. She says, I may as well go out with you if I got to go out with him. It's the same thing. That was the difference.
She never considered him as a suitor or anybody that she would marry.
He just wouldn't take no for an answer.
If you saw John, or if you've even seen a picture of him, he was very handsome. Very tall, blonde. He looked like a German, you know, with that blonde hair, those blue eyes. He was a very, very handsome man. And he had lots of girlfriends. I mean, it's to fall all over him, but he only had eyes for one person. I mean, it's true. You talk about a love affair that never ended for him. She was always in his heart.
He was as stubborn as a mule. I spoke to him time and time again. I think Peggy spoke to him. Others in the family spoke to him. But I think my mother loved him. But she says, no, Nancy will never marry him.
She did marry someone else, and she really did break his heart. She totally broke his heart. And after that, it was one girl after another, one girl after another. But he never let himself get serious about anybody. He broke a lot of hearts.
There was one in particular that was with him so many years that finally she got disgusted and married somebody else.
Dolores, she was a lovely, lovely girl. She had become friends with me. And she used to tell me, you know, she knew how John felt. She knew the whole story, too. And he dated her for quite a while. But then she said she had to break it off with him because he was just wasting her youth.
She ended up with 2 or 3 kids, and her first son born, she named him John. And he turned around and I says, John, she's a widow now. The husband died. She's got a house. She's living in Jersey. She's got 2 grown sons or 3 grown sons. I says, you'll have a family, everything. He says, I don't need that. I says, what do you mean? Don't you like kids? He says, I got kids. He says, your boys, they're my kids. They're like my family.
And so it ended up that John remained a bachelor. The day that he died in Calvary Hospital, he was almost dead. And she came to visit him with her husband, and this is many years had gone by. And then I went afterwards, and I known she just left, and he called me over to him, and he said, come here, I want to tell you something. What? He said to me, Nancy was here. I says, I know, John, I know she was here. He says, you know what, Peggy? She kissed me. He said, she kissed me. And he was so happy. He looked so happy because she kissed him before he died. That was love, true, true love.
I felt so bad, but it just was one of those things that they would never get together.
But he was happy. He had a smile on his face when he told me, and he could hardly even talk. He just whispered to me. He says, she was here and she kissed me. I tell you, I just couldn't get over that. How he looked when he told me that. It was his final end was a happy end for him, because at least he got that.
Don't walk in front of me. I might not follow. Don't walk in back of me. I might not lead. Walk beside me and be my friend. That was John Perna. Walking beside me was always my friend. Was never better, never worse. Right in the middle.
I don't know. I think you know when you start feeling differently toward a person, when you start caring about what happens to them, that's love.
Love is not thinking of yourself. Love is thinking of the other person.
If there's something bothering him, it bothers you. And when he's unhappy, you're unhappy.
When I would get up in the morning, I'd look for her. I have a habit of touching and feeling if she's next to me. Not that I'm being fresh now.
When you're away, you only feel like you're half of an individual. And when you're together, you feel whole. And that's love.
That's what love is all about, thinking of the other person.
You have to love somebody, but before that, you have to like them too.
And you've got to be patient, because when the time comes, you'll find the right person. I found her. I was very young, very lucky.
Because when we married, we were children. I was 20, he was 23, going on 24. We were children, really. And yet for it to last that long, there has to be something good to it.
I think I fell in love with her the first time I saw her. And I didn't know what it was. It was like being bit by a funny bug. You know you got bit, but you don't know where the hell it was or what it was. And that's how it was with her.
He was always very loving, and he was a wonderful father, always thinking of us, thinking of his family. And that's why I love him, and I always will.
I think I've told her 1,000,000 times she's my life. And period. That's it. She's my life. I don't know what I'd do without her. I don't know what I did without her before I met her.
And that's love.
And that's the only thing in life. What else is there? There's nothing else that you can do except love one another.